The Sweetest Revenge: How a Black Woman Put Two Arrogant, Racist Saleswomen in Their Place. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the city as the midday rush swept through the streets. Inside Lame Zone Eternal, an exclusive boutique nestled in the heart of New York City's Fifth Avenue, the air was thick with the scent of opulence. Crystal chandeliers dangled from the ceiling like frozen rain, scattering delicate prisms of light across the polished marble floors. Rows of designer garments lined the store in immaculate order, each piece a testament to haute couture and luxury. Behind the counter stood Marin Dupont and Sophie Leroy, the boutique's most senior sales associates. They were poised like sentinels, their faces masks of refined indifference. They had seen it all: the rich, the famous, the influencers chasing fleeting fame. Over time, they had honed a skill they took pride in, distinguishing the truly affluent from the pretenders, those merely browsing from those who would actually spend. "Another slow day, I suppose," Marin remarked, her French accent lending an air of sophistication to her words as she lazily flipped through a fashion magazine. "Better slow than filled with the wrong sort of customer," Sophie replied, her gaze flicking toward the entrance, just as the bell chimed softly. A tall woman with dark skin stepped inside. Her movements were confident, yet understated. She wore a simple but well-tailored dress, not from a high-end designer, at least not one the associates would recognize. Her natural hair framed her face in a halo of tight curls, and she carried herself with quiet dignity. Marin smirked, exchanging a glance with Sophie. "I'll handle this one," she murmured, setting her magazine aside. The woman approached a display of handbags, her fingers brushing over the supple leather of one that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "May I help you?" Marin's voice was crisp, her tone bordering on condescending as she stepped forward. The woman turned, her brown eyes warm but wary. "Yes, I was wondering if you have this bag in a different color?" Marin's eyes flicked from the bag back to the woman. "That particular bag is from a limited edition collection," she said, the implication clear. It was rare, expensive, and perhaps out of reach for someone like her. The woman didn't waver.
"I see.
"Do you have it in any other colors?" Marin hesitated. Her instincts told her this customer wasn't likely to buy anything. "I'm afraid what we have on display is all that's currently in stock," she lied smoothly, crossing her arms in a subtle gesture of dismissal. The woman studied the bag for a moment longer before nodding. "Thank you," she said evenly. "I'll look around a bit more." As she moved to another section of the store, Sophie leaned in. "What did she want?" she asked, her tone mirroring Marin's earlier disdain. "To see a bag we don't have," Marin replied, amusement in her voice. "But don't worry, she won't be buying anything. She's just browsing." Sophie rolled her eyes. "Typical. I wish people would understand this isn't a museum. If you're not going to buy, don't waste our time." The two watched as the woman continued browsing, pausing occasionally to examine an item before moving on. Eventually, she returned to the counter. "Is there anything else I can assist you with?" Marin asked, her voice laced with false sweetness. The woman shook her head. "No, thank you. I think I've seen everything I need to see." "Very well," Marin replied, barely concealing her relief. "Have a nice day." As the woman turned to leave, she hesitated for a moment, then looked back at the two associates. "You know," she said slowly, "people will often surprise you. It's important to treat everyone with respect. You never know who might be standing in front of you." With that, she stepped outside, the door closing softly behind her. Sophie scoffed. "What was that supposed to mean?" Marin shrugged. "Who knows? Some people think they can lecture us just because they walk into a high-end store. Let's just hope the next customer is actually worth our time." But as the day wore on, the incident lingered in the back of Marin's mind. There had been something about the woman, something that didn't quite fit the image Marin had painted of her in those first few moments. Still, she brushed the thought aside. It wasn't the first time someone had tried to play the part of a wealthy customer, and it wouldn't be the last. Weeks passed, and the encounter with the woman faded into the routine of daily life at Lame Zone Eternal. Autumn set in, bringing a steady stream of customers eager to update their wardrobes for cooler weather. The boutique settled back into its usual rhythm, and Marin and Sophie had long since forgotten about the woman with the simple dress and natural hair. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the boutique's door swung open once again. The woman walked in. This time, something was different. She was dressed in a sleek, tailored suit that exuded understated luxury. Draped over her arm was an unmistakable Birkin bag, a model so exclusive that even Lame's own Eternal rarely carried it. Marin and Sophie exchanged quick glances. Gone was their smug confidence, replaced with a flicker of unease. Marin quickly regained her composure, stepping forward with her most professional smile. "Welcome back," she said smoothly. "How may we assist you today?" The woman smiled back, but there was a coolness in her gaze that hadn't been there before. "I've come to make a purchase," she said, her tone leaving no room for doubt. Marin nodded, her mind racing. "Of course. Is there something specific you're looking for?" "Yes," the woman said, setting her handbag down on the counter. "But first, I'd like to know if you still have that limited edition bag I asked about last time I was here." Marin's heart skipped a beat. She had lied about the stock that day, assuming the woman would never return. Now, she was being called out. "I'm terribly sorry, but that bag was sold shortly after your visit," she said, hoping the lie would hold. The woman's expression remained unreadable. "Is that so? I see. Well, in that case, I'm sure I'll find something else to my liking." Marin exhaled in relief. But then, the woman unzipped her handbag and calmly began stacking crisp, clean $100 bills onto the counter. Pile after pile, bound neatly until the counter was covered in cash. "I'll take this one," she said, pointing to a handbag behind the counter. "And that one," she added, nodding at a dress on a nearby mannequin. "And these," she gestured toward a display of jewelry. Marin and Sophie could only stare, stunned into silence. Sophie finally stepped forward. We need to count it all before proceeding." "By all means," the woman said, stepping back. "Take your time." And take their time they did. It took over 2 hours to meticulously count every dollar, their shock deepening with each passing minute. Finally, Marin looked up. "Everything seems to be in order. Thank you for your patience. Shall we proceed?" The woman smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Actually," she said, "I've changed my mind." Marin blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "I've changed my mind," the woman repeated. "I won't be making a purchase today after all." Sophie's mouth tightened. But you've already gone through all this trouble. Are you sure?" The woman's gaze flicked between them. "Yes, I'm sure. I just wanted to make sure you both understood the value of what I'm not buying today." Gathering her handbag, she turned to leave. At the door, she paused. "You see," she said softly, "respect isn't about how much money someone has. It's about recognizing their worth, regardless of what they wear or how they look. I hope you remember that next time." With that, she walked out into the rain, the door swinging shut behind her.